I think that's a French name, but it means something embedded, a figural embed. And on federal furniture that we talked about earlier today, that's mostly things like eagles and shells and ovals and just all kind of inlays. Some of them have feathers. Prince of Wales feathers is a real good one. There's 3 feathers that come up. You may have seen some of them. There are dozens of different ones. And it used to be that there were lots of companies in this country that made those. And this was before laser cutting. Nowadays, the ones you see today are made cut by laser. To me, they don't look as good. But all the old ones were made by hand. And this company right here, Dover Inlay, was the leader in inlay manufacture in this country for years. And there was another one called McNeil Veneers. There were a number of these companies that made bandings and Pateraes, and they were either in the northeast where Dover was or around Lansing, Michigan. Or in Michigan, it was a big furniture manufacturer in the early 1800s, or late 1800s, early 1900s, and there were a lot of factories up in that part of the country that made inlays of all types. One of the bigger uses of inlays around the turn of the century was Singer sewing machines. Singer sewing machine used a lot of inlays, and little companies sprung up to do that. But Dover supplied most of the inlays that we see today, and luckily before they went out of business, I got one of their catalogs that lists everything they make, all these different bandings of all types, and these Pateraes. See all these? Eagles, shells, urns, quarter fans, and all different sizes. Shells, vases, flowers, owls, all kinds of things. More eagles, more fans. You know, we looked at the bellflowers along the leg. You could buy a veneer strip that already had them in there, and all you do is just glue it on the whole front. They were called leg fronts, and they're popular. And you could get them in all kinds of different sizes. See these little balls, drills, and stuff. But I can make these. You can make these. And the way I do this now is that I will take that book that has the pattern, and I'll go to my computer and I'll copy it. Once you get it copied, you can blow it up and down, move it any size you want. And that's not that book on my pattern. I don't limit myself just to this book. I also go online, and you can do a Google search of Eagle Pateraes or any Pateraes, and you'll get hundreds of them online. And when I see a piece of furniture that has one I like, I'll do a screen capture that, put it on the computer, blow it up, shrink it down, whatever I need to do to get a good pattern. Now, once I get that, once I get this picture like I want, now I want to make a pattern. Now, yeah, I could glue that down, and I could scroll saw each of these little pieces out. But it's hard to follow that when it's colored. So what I do is I take this, and I have a light table, piece of plexiglass with a light on the bottom of it. Take this pattern down, and then take a piece of tracing paper over the top of it, and follow all the lines. And you come up with this. This is a whole lot easier to follow with a scroll saw than that is. And once you get this sheet of paper on this piece of tracing paper, I got a whole book full of these with all different kinds of inlays that I made. And this is a way easier to follow than that. This is one I just got last week. I had made a pattern out of it. I like this. It's just like a swirl oval. I'll make a pattern of that for long.
When you make that pattern, you trace out there. You then go back to your printer.
Yeah. Put this in a printer, print out me out copies on wall. Keep this in the file. Use the printed one for my pattern. And in this situation, the one we're making today, I'll show you when I glued up. pattern glued onto a packet. And we'll talk about that here just in a minute, what this packet consists of. So once you found a pattern you like, this is what I do today. Now, how did they do this years ago? This is not what they did. They had patterns like this, and they would put them on paper. Years ago, the French did this, the Italians did this. They would have an artist draw out a pattern on a piece of paper. Then they would take a needle and poke a hole along all the lines. You've seen that. The French actually have a machine that will do that. A little machine that just like a sewing machine, and you can move it under there and it'll poke holes in it. So once you get those holes poked in it, then you can lay it down on your pattern, on the sheet you're going to use for a pattern. Here's the master with holes in it. Lay it on there and use Ponce powder. Now what is that? Well, it's this stuff called asphaltium. And asphaltium comes from some mines out in Arizona have it. You may well know it better as toner for a copy machine. It's a black material powder that has a unique ability to adhere to paper when it's heated. So you remember when you have an old Xerox machine, you put toner in there, and you got your copy out, it was warm. The reason it was warm is because the asphaltium, the dust went, the toner went on the paper, went under a light, heated it up, and then fixed it to the paper. That's been around a long time. Way before the Xerox people were smart enough to figure out how to make that in a process. But what Dover, for instance, did. Dover has got all kinds of patterns like this, and they'll use that Ponce powder, make a pattern, pass it over. You got the powder on here now. Pass it over a hot plate, it'll set. Then you can use it as you design. Now, I will show you some examples of that. These are some old Dover. We looked at these yesterday. These old Dover patterns. That is again, you can see. This is a Dover pattern. Look close and you can see the little holes. There was an article in Fine Woodworking magazine not long after it came out, where they actually made a tour of the Dover plant where they were making these inlays. And they had lines and lines, probably had 20, I think is the number they had, of Delta scroll saws, Delta 440 scroll saws. They had lines of women there sawing out these patterns. They would put them in divided boxes, each little pieces. Then they have a line of ladies that sit at this table, and they had a piece of paper with hide glue on it. They would take out each of the little individual cut pieces and stick it on paper. Do this all day long. And they chose women to do this because they found out that sewing machine operators were really good at making patterns. So that's what they used. And nowadays, of course they don't do that. Nowadays everything's laser cut. You get some guy sitting at a computer cutting them out, and that's it. I don't think they look the same. I want you to look, here's some old Dover inlays. Take a look at these really closely. You'll find that they don't, there's some gaps in those lines. They don't fit real tight. You think they do, but they don't. Get under magnification, these are not very good. And you see the piece of paper that had hide glue on it, where they stuck them down? That's on the back of that. What they did, once they got them stuck down, was they took it, and you can see it, evidence of it on top. They took a mixture of hide glue and sawdust, rubbed it in there, filled up all the little gaps that they made. That's what I do also. It fills them right up. You cannot see them. I still make patterns like that occasionally. I made this shell pattern, but I use mylar. Y'all know what mylar is around here? Mylar, it's way more sturdy than tracing paper. And I poke little holes in it. And the good thing about this, Xerox machines can make things a little off sometimes. They're not exact patterns. This is the exact pattern. So I'll pass that around and look at that. I have used this one. And when I read that article in Fine Woodworking about how they did that, and they mentioned asphaltium, I looked up. I didn't have a computer. I looked up what's the name of that company that they put out all those books on who makes everything? Something McKay's books or something, that is volume after volume of manufacturers of everything in the country. And we had one at the job site. I went in and looked up asphaltium. Found out there was a manufacturer, US asphaltium or something out in Arizona. And so I wrote them a letter and I said, I want to buy some asphaltium. It listed my name and my phone number at work. They called me and they were excited. Oh, you want some asphaltium? And I said, yeah. I said, how much do you need? And I said, I need about a pound can. And they said, we don't sell anything smaller than railroad tank car loads. and I explained to him, I said, well, this is an experiment. He said, we'll send you a can. So they sent me a can. I've still got it. And it works great. You dust it on there, pass it over a warm plate, fixes it right on there. Works great. But it's a little slower, a little messier than doing it with a computer. So I made a pattern with a computer. So now that we've got our pattern made, then we're gonna cut it out. The simplest one you can make is two parts. You got a background color and you got a base color. On this particular design, you've also got a shield in the middle. The shield's got 3 colors in it. And if you made a pattern, you put enough pieces of veneer in there to cut all that, you have a pretty good stack. So what I do is, and what most people do is, I make the eagle in the background, and I make the shell or the shield separately. Put it in separately. Now, I only have 2 thicknesses on this. I have a sheet of blue for the background, and I have a sheet of maple for the eagle. This will make a positive and a negative, and make a blue background with a white eagle, blue background. You can see that. Dover, when they were sewing out these things, their packs were an inch thick. And they would do like 24 at one time. I tried that, and I don't know what Dover did, but I can't keep my blade straight enough. In the scroll saw, the blade wants to wander, but evidently I don't have the technique. If you like we've talked about all a bunch of times today, if you do something like this all day, every day, you get really good at it. And those people were really good at it. Most I can do is I put 4 sheets in before and had it work pretty good. But 2 works better. So I've got a sheet of blue veneer and a sheet of maple veneer in there. And I use a staple. Well, first you got to put a cover sheet on. I've used all kind of cover sheets. Some's got to hold the pattern. So I've used 16-inch plywood, which works really good. I tried using cardboard, just plain cardboard. It worked all right, except it fuzzes up, and didn't like that. So I learned from another guy, cover it with packing tape. Put packing tape over it, and it won't fuzz up. Works perfect. So nowadays when I make it, I use cardboard, nothing on that, just plain cardboard, 2 sheets of veneer, another piece of cardboard on top with a pattern on it, then cover it with packing tape. And that's what I did to cut this one. It works really well.
Cover the back too?
No, I don't cover the back. You don't care what the back. You don't care about the back. You just don't want it to fuzz up on the pattern you're trying to follow. So I just put it on the front. And I use a stapler, staple it together, and put it on a piece of steel and hammer it to make sure that It's not sticking out. My scroll saw, I use a Hegner scroll saw. It's a German-made scroll saw. It's not any better or any worse than any other scroll saw. But you need one, at least I do, I need one that has variable speed. I want it to go about like this. About like I do with my hand. If it's going like that, it'll get away from me in a hurry. So that Hegner works really good on slow speed, so it's going about like this. About that speed. I use a 2/0 blade. You can use 5/0, but they're awfully thin. 2/0 work just fine. So I use a 2/0 blade. And the ones I like are from a company called Flying Dutchman. They make a Puzzle Master, I think it's the name of it. Puzzle Master blade in 2/0. So when I start, I drill a hole that little 2/0 blade will thread through somewhere in the shield, but I'm going to replace it. And start from there. And scroll saw each of these pieces out. This is an important item. You start with a scroll sawing this out. That down here, came to this point, came back up this line, and stop. Well, I turn the power, I use foot switch. Take my foot off this foot switch, and because that 2/0 is so small, you can just turn it on itself and then run it back out. And you won't leave a kerf there. We'll talk about that later, about why you want a kerf there. So scroll saw each one of these pieces out. Before you do any of this, sweep the floor. Sweep the floor, because these parts are small, and I guarantee you will drop one. And if you're in a shop where there's a lot of stuff on the floor, you'll never find it. So sweep the floor. Here's what's left of the pack. There's the cover. There's the blue. There's the maple. And there's the back. All cut out. And in here, I have all the parts I used. To pick these things up and move them around, you need an X-Acto knife. There it is. There's the wing. Now before we assemble this, we're going to do some sand shading on it. So I got a little individual box here for every piece to go in there. Some of these pieces are teeny-tiny. I mean like comma on a page. We'll go over that in a minute. So now I've got all the parts cut out. And I want to start assembling this.
Before you leave the cut,
Now, how do you keep them from sliding around in there, the little pieces as you cut them out?
When you cut them out, they'll come loose. And you have to carefully take you separate it. Once one separates, turn the saw off. Reach in here, pick out each of the 4 pieces with your X-Acto knife. So that when you get through, you have the pattern part, you have the back cardboard, you have the maple, and you have the blue. You get 4, whatever one. You only use 2 of them, or 1 of them, but you get 4 pieces of it. You can lubricate the blade on your scroll saw. Just touch some paraffin to it. Cut down any friction that you have. Some people, the French, one of the things they do is that they would take this back board and they would cover it with lard on one side. You put lard on it. Lard acts as a lubricant. So they put a little lard on it. You can do the same thing with paraffin, rub a little paraffin on it. And that, when the blade comes up, picks up a little of that paraffin and it lubricates it. And it does make a difference. It makes it scroll saw so much easier. The thing you gotta remember on scroll sawing is that blade is sticking straight up. Your cut needs to be directed straight in. You do not want to push it into the side either way. You gotta turn this all the time, making sure that you're headed right straight in. All the time. You don't ever want to push, and you can tell when you're looking at the blade, if the blade starts going to the side, you're not pushing it in straight. It's a process that you gotta learn, and it's, after you've done it a few times, you see what works. And I would not start off with something this complicated. I start off with something pretty simple, like that first shell I showed you a minute ago. That's easy. There are very few twists and turns in it.
You know, on the scroll saw, you kind of have the whole things at an angle to go through it.
Oh, no, I do not cut them straight. I do not cut them at an angle.
It's going so slow, you don't need to do that.
Right, but there is a process in marquetry where they tilt the table so that when they cut this way and you cut the other way and you put them together, they overlap. I don't do that. I don't. It would be really hard. It would be hard to do, but that's the way marquetry is done. They usually cut it at an angle. I cut them straight. I do not mind the curve that's left. We're going to use it to our advantage. We're going to use that curve to our advantage. So you can do it that way. Another thing about scroll sewing is you need to have a foot switch. You don't want to try to turn that on and off. You need to have a good light, and you need to have a good pair of magnifying glasses. You think you can do good work, you put magnifying glasses on, you can do way better work. So I do it all under magnification with magnifying lenses in my glasses. If you're curious on how to do some of these things, I recommend some DVDs. Y'all know who Rob Millard is, cabinet maker up in Ohio? Really good, an unusual person, but a really great cabinet maker and a good instructor. And he's got a number of DVDs out on making all kinds of things. But these two right here, how to make an eagle Paterae and how to make a shell Paterae. Tell you everything you need to know. Millard, M-I-L-L-A-R-D. And that's where I learned to do stuff, was from him. And
That's not on your resources list, is it?
no, it's not. I did not put that on there.
What are the titles of those?
I'm sorry.
What are the titles?
Making a conch shell inlay, or Paterae, making a conch shell Paterae, making a federal period eagle Paterae. And there's his federal eagle Paterae. And he'll go over his method of how he does that. Very similar to what I do, but not exactly the same. Everybody learns, develops their own process.
What's Millard's first name?
Robert.
Robert, okay.
He has a website called American Federal Period, I believe. If you just do a Google search on Rob Millard furniture, you'll get it. Okay. These are really good. Okay, so I timed myself. I made this, Thursday morning I made this. I made 2 packs, this one and the one I cut out. And I timed myself. It took me 45 minutes to cut this out, which I thought was pretty good. For 45 minutes, I couldn't do that when I first started. But I can cut all these pieces out in 45 minutes. And that's what I did in this box.
So again, where do you start on that, and you drill holes all over?
I've got a real small, like 1/32 drill, and I drill a hole right up here in the corner where the shield's gonna go. That's when you put the shield, you're gonna put a new shield in there. So anything, you can drill it anywhere in there. So I drill a hole right there, and on these, I start with the head first, cut this piece out, then this piece, then this piece, then this one, then this one. These are very small, cut them next, then this one, then this one, and this part. The last one's like cut are these right down here.
So you kind of start from the inside and
Yeah,
work your way
kind of
out.
work your way out. You want to keep in mind that these things need to be supported.
Right.
You know, these little small pieces have a lot of wood around them. But when you get up here and like taking this one out, you want to take it out before you take this out. You'll learn. It's just a process, and you'll find what works and what doesn't for you. So now I've got all these things cut out, and I want to assemble them. Well, we mentioned before that the people at Dover would have had a sheet of paper with some hot glue on it where they stuck the pieces down as they assembled them. Nowadays, there are other ways to do it, which I learned from this book, Book of Boxes. This is an English box maker. Andrew Crawford. You can get this book used on eBay or in Amazon, any place that's $5, $6. Excellent book. Talks all about inlaying, all about how to make Paterae. This guy is a good teacher, and I would recommend this book to you if you're interested in any kind of inlays or bandings and things like that. He has a very good description of how to do it. And one of the things I learned two important things from him. The first one was that the sand that you use for sand shading is really important. Do not get builder's sand or place sand like you get at Lowe's. It's too big. The grains are too big. You need to have sand that's been run through a sieve. Really fine as you can get. It so happens that pet stores sell sieved sand for lizards and other things. And you can buy a bag of sand at a pet store that's made for lizards and iguanas and stuff. It's fine as it can be. The English call it silver sand. And that's where you buy it. It's tiny little grains, very tight, so you don't have the air pockets. When you heat it up, you got a nice even heat. And that's what I've got. I bought a bag of it, I don't know, 10 years ago. I still got half the bag. And put it in a skillet. It needs to be a cast iron skillet, something that'll hold the heat. The sand in there and let it heat up. I use a lid on it. The lid gets sand hot faster and holds the heat good. So this is just a little one burner stove unit, and it's heated it up. It's ready to go. I started it this morning. So before we do that though, before we sand shade, we want to see what it looks like. The other thing, I had to learn two important things from this book. The first one was the sand. The second one is this stuff. This is ID label paper that Avery makes. You know, like, hello, my name is so-and-so. Hello, my name is so-and-so. You can print those on a computer, and you can get label paper to do that. The most important thing. It fell off. The most important thing about this paper most important thing about getting this, and you can order this online, the most important thing is this right here. See where it says removable? You want that because if you get the stuff that's not removable, the stuff you stick to it will not come off. So you want to make sure you get removable Avery paper. And I get it, you can get it in where it's divided into little squares and stuff like for name tags. I get it in a full sheet, 8.5 by 11 sheets of it. And it'll go in your printer on your computer. I'll do that. So you get the sheet like this. There it is. I'll lay this out here. You can take a look at it later. Sometimes you can find it in Walmart. I found it in Walmart before, but I just order it on Amazon nowadays. So this is a piece of plastic sheet with a cover on it. And it's got some lines across it where you can peel that off. Once the backing paper is off. And this stuff is sticky, which is what you want. That should be enough right there. So, we are ready to start gluing up our eagle. We start with the background. This is the background. Sticks right to it.
Face down.
I'm sorry.
Face down.
Yeah,
Face down.
In this case, this is the show face we're looking at. This will be the show face. In this case, the eagle is looking that way.
Face up.
Yes, he's looking this way.
Okay.
I can take this off and have the eagle looking the other way. So you got to think about that when you have your inlay on there, which way you want your eagle to face. He's supposed to face to the right. The eagle's supposed to face to the right. So if this is the show face, then I need to turn him over because he's facing left. There you go. Now he's facing right.
Good thing it's removable.
Yeah, it's moving. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's gotta be. Because we're gonna take everything off. Now, X-Acto knife, start looking for parts. We'll go with the head first. There's the eagle's head. There you go, he's in there. Now we'll go, and you need your picture of what you're doing now, so you can remember where everything goes. There's a picture. Okay, the next thing we're going to use is the little throat part, the little neck part, which is, should be right here close to where the head was. There's the head, there's the throat part, right there. So it goes in which way? This way. Upside down and backwards. Right there. So you can see how that assembles. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand shade those now. And on this one, if you look at the picture, the eagle has a little sand shading out here on the back of his feathers and a little on his brow, and that's all he gets, so he doesn't get much sand shading. So we'll go over here to our hot sand, take the lid off.
Let me get over there for you.
Take the tongs, holding. Already got a little shading on there. Doesn't take much. And we want a little bit on his brow, up on the top of his head. There you go. Might put just a little more on his feather. On his. The stuff will burn it if you don't. You haven't been there very long. That's good, right there. And it's got a little sand shading on there, very subtle. Go ahead and get the next one. The next one is the throat of the eagle, and he gets shaded across the top. The top is right there, so we want to put a sand shade line right across this top. Further you get down in the sand, the hotter it gets. And it will scorch if you go all the way to the bottom. There you go. Just a light sanding, shading on it. Now this one's tricky. I know this is slow, but I think it's going to look completely different. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is get the little throat plate under there, which is, which one? Ah, there it is. Right there. And where does it get shaded? Just a little bit across the top, I think so it gets. And across, yeah, just a little bit across the top. Now this piece right here is very delicate. It's got little tiny, little small cuts in it, little thin piece. We don't want to leave that in there very long, it'll burn right off. I can tell the sand is cooled off already because it's not as acting as. Make sure you got a good pair of tweezers because if you drop one of these in there, not good. See, we're picking up some color now across the top. That's what we want right there. And this sand shading goes all the way through the wood. So when you sand it, if you have to sand it later, you won't sand away you will not sand away the sand shade, the shading.
Now, does the shading, when you do that, that
shrinks them a little bit.
I guess it does a little bit. I never thought about that, but I guess it could. Okay, now I'm gonna do the bandage across the top. That's this one. And it goes here. And the shading on it is right at the tip, where it looks like it goes under his head. Yeah, so I'm gonna shade right on the very tip of it. I know this looks time consuming. I enjoy doing this because it just, every time you do a little something to it, it looks better. Stand that up in there just a second or two. Just getting it. There you go. That's what we want right there. Good. And we want the other one, it's shaded the same way on the other side. Where is it? Right there. There it is. Okay. Stand it up in there, let it sit a minute, just a few seconds. Some people count 1, 2, 3. I've never been able to get it consistent enough to do that. I just keep doing it till it looks right. Yeah, that's looking good. There you go.
So if you burn one up, you start all over?
Yep. Yep, me too. Good. I'll mention this later, but the eye, very important, the eye. It's a little tiny slit. I do that, is the very last thing I do. After I've got it all done, I'll cut the eye in. Now we're gonna go to, so we've got this picture, we're gonna go to this bigger piece right here, which is where? Right there, should be right here. We got that one. Oh, that's the shield. We don't do that. We'll just do this one next. This is the little piece up here. Okay. That is. That one gets shaded where it mounts to the bottom. This is why you do the floor. Well,
6 times the charm.
put my hand under it this time. Okay, want this side. Watch about how you hold an X-Acto knife. I poke myself all the time with them. There you go. And this one goes on which side? The side over here. There it goes, there. There should be another one going on the other side. It looks like this right here. And that one gets shaded. Oops. What we're doing with that is a piece of cardboard. Want this one? And that one goes on this side, and it gets shaded right at the end. Oops. It also makes a difference what kind of wood you got and how thick your veneer is. This is fairly thin veneer. If you had some thick veneer, it'd take a little longer to shade it. This stuff shades quick. Yeah, that's good.
Is this regular 42nd inch? steel?
No, this is a little thicker than that.
Okay.
It's not quite a 32nd. There we go. Okay, now we're going to go with the wings. We'll start with this wing first. And they get shaded at the top and at the, where they meet the shield. See which one this is. Not that one. That one, okay. Right at the very top and in the corner, all right? All this makes your figure look three-dimensional. More. That's look more than that. I can tell the sand has cooled down a little bit. Yeah, that's what we want right there. Now, a little on the tip. And this is the way I do it at home. I sit down like this. There, that's good. There, looks good. Okay, now the next piece is the bigger wing, which should be this one right here. Yeah, that's it. And on it gets shaded, where? Oh, it gets shaded up at the very end, up on the very tip. Not much, just a little. God, look at that move. The heat's making it move.
Fold it up, didn't
Yeah, it did. I've never had one do that before.
And you've just got kerf lines between the feathers, right?
Yep. And when we put the that filler, it'll fill in those lines with that black stuff that we talked about yesterday,
Yeah.
and it'll look like somebody drew it on there. Yeah, that's good. Well, pick up. Do it this way. There we go. You hold this over there, you can get an idea of what it's looking like.
I got it.
Oh,
It was,
you begin to see it shading. Now I can go ahead and do all this if you want to sit here and watch me do it. I can finish it up and then we'll put the backing on it quick. Okay, we need to go over to the other wing now, which is where? Not that one, but this one.
And there are YouTube videos on this part of the market here.
Yeah, this one gets shaded right at the very top, right where it goes under, okay?
watch time, Metcalf.
Have you scanned in all of those Dover patterns?
Yeah, I think I have, as a matter of fact, I know I've got it on a file at home. There you go, that's pretty good. Dover went out of business, and then they had one of these employee buyouts where the employees were gonna run it for a while, and I think it actually ran for a few more years. I do not know if it's still in business or not, but they still sold all these same designs. But the people that make Pateraes and Inlays and stuff today, they're all laser cut. And like I said earlier, I think they look a little different. They look too good.
Okay, we've got a guy that has a laser
Right.
now.
Well, there's some things that are enjoyable to do by hand. You can say somebody did this, it wasn't done by machine. There we go. And then the next big wing is right here. And the big wing gets just a little across the top, and that's all. See if this one curls like the other one did.
Do you ever use contact paper for holding the things together like
I
this?
tried that, and it was stuck too much.
It stuck too much?
Too much. This has just the right amount of holding it down and easy to peel it off. But the other papers I've tried had, and you can use blue tape. Some people use blue tape, you know, lay down a bunch of blue tape with the tape up, and you can use it. But this stuff, it just has the right tack to it.
In one of the books you recommend here by Metcalf and Apps,
Yeah.
he recommends bookbinders film. Now, what the hell is that? And I kept searching to find out what it was. And in England, they use contact paper to reinforce the textbooks and so on.
Yeah.
Some people do that in the US, so all it was contact paper. A&P. And that's what he uses for something. It's not quite the same as what you're doing though.
There you go. That looks all right. That looks three-dimensional.
Our kids gave us this for Christmas.
Now I'm gonna go down to the
Last
feet.
Christmas, and, I was down in one of those laser burners.
Oh, yeah. Dennis had one dog recently turned out great.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the feet next, and we're gonna get the upper haunch right there. It's not the right one, I don't think. Guess we got them on the other side.
Yeah, our granddaughter did a photo shoot for us at the park, and that was just one photograph from there.
What have I done wrong here? This goes somewhere.
Shots, I guess.
So it's gotta go this way. Like this, there's where it
So
goes.
like, daughter and her husband took the photograph for that, and hired the guy.
That's it, right there. Yeah, you're right. Now this one gets shaded just right on the very tip.
You see what Dennis does with the.
When you're setting in here, there's a little bit of a curve, I guess, because you cut it straight up.
I'm sorry?
It's like when you cut it straight up, it leaves a little bit of a curve.
It does.
So are you trying to center?
Yeah, try to center it, have it so that there's an even
Curve all
yeah, even curve all the way around it.
Orion,
Because it's gonna fill up with that black stuff.
well, it is striking, she's done a bunch of them.
There you go.
And then does that,
Pardon?
we really cut these. Berman.
That's right. Now that foot goes down there, which is
Laser
this
and
one.
this other thing, the CNC. The thing it does with the CNC, though, it makes those pictures.
Is this the right one?
And
that's
then it's
crazy.
one made, it just jumps out at you.
Let's
nothing, and then all of a sudden it just shows up.
Yeah.
Nope, that's the other side, I think.
Have you done one of those little things?
I do them, I've
Yeah.
never done one.
Yeah.
I've got pictures.
What was
You
you call
gotta,
that?
you gotta work with the spindle, right?
Yeah.
That's this one.
They take a long time to cut.
Well, anything that's 3D, it usually takes a
Yeah.
while. especially if
It's
you use
overlapping.
small
It's not
ones.
right.
I mean, you're only making a few thousandths of an inch passes.
Okay.
The leg's
I'm looking
upside
at it.
down,
This
but
looks like it needs to go on the other side,
I think you're
as
right.
it turns out.
Yeah.
Well, then it leaves a gap underneath for the leg to fit into.
no, no, it's
Under
upside
here.
down. Turn it over,
Like this.
and the long feather goes at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that.
There we go.
Nope, that's not.
But it
it.
goes over here, I think.
Goes over there.
That little cut right
Yeah.
there.
It's got, the long straight side has got to match up with the shield.
Yeah.
Like that.
There you
it
go.
is. That's
Now
it.
you got it.
Now I got it. And this piece should go right in there, and it does. I need a sharper X-Acto mark. Yep, that goes right in there, okay?
Mhm.
Now where does this get shaded? This gets shaded right across the top.
There you go.
There's your stone right behind you.
Do y'all have many members that do period furniture?
Buzz and them kept, they're taking classes all over the place, and they have some of their pieces in the house, it's beautiful,
Yeah.
it's federal style.
Right, yeah. That's the thing about the group, Saffron group, that's all they do, period furniture.
They do all periods,
Yep,
different groups.
they
And
do,
the group-
they sort of look at you funny if you do arts and crafts, which is really an American period, but a lot of them don't like that. They think that good furniture ended in 1810, anything after that. Yeah, that was good. Okay, now the arrow, put the arrow in next.
Banner, Buzz and them still active.
Let's put the, that's got
They're still
a,
members, I haven't heard anything from them.
okay, the arrow only gets a little shading right at the very tip.
Furniture in the last 2 or 3 shows. She comes and photographs for us.
We'll make a shield, this afternoon, or this morning too, we got time, we'll go ahead and cut a shield out, what time is it?
Probably 10.
Oh, we got plenty.
I haven't seen the furniture since 2014.
The only ones I've seen that had in their home, both like this stuff, and
I hope y'all aren't too bored when I do this.
I thought it was just come up and see some of it. Oh, now I see why the shield isn't cut out at the same time.
That's right, you'd have to have all the same. I'm gonna put in the other back, the feathers of the arrow. And I think this is this right here. Is that the feathers of the arrow? Yeah, it is. And one of his toes. And that gets shaded. It's this piece right here.
Yeah, just right.
I'm
at the
sorry,
tip.
right here.
This kind of stuff.
So it gets shaded right at the tip where it goes under.
I do everything with exactly.
Just
It's
barely,
shaded
huh?
in it. Okay.
Is it easier to do? I don't like doing it, I don't have room for a stroke, gets up dusty.
This guy I mentioned, Robert Millard, that has the details on how to do all these Pateraes. He's got a Dremel scroll saw, cheapest one you can buy, and that's what he uses. This goes right in here now.
Yeah, I got one I bought here for $100 on sale. It does good.
There you go. See the shadow going to the foot there?
Yep.
Okay, now we're gonna do the other side.
Pretty fast.
Other leg is.
Now, all these pieces here were cut from the same piece of veneer?
Yes, they were in the pack.
So you don't worry about the direction of the grain? That's just-
Yeah, you need to think about that.
Well, I mean, this is going the same, it's not like this is going that way and that going that way.
Some people do that, cut them each individually so they can align the grain. That's another method. I don't do that. It's very long, very complicated, and I can't get it to fit as good. So I use this, so all my grain's going the same way.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna do this one that's sitting right there, and it's shaded at the top and the top only.
7 foot are very steep. With a neat.
People are always impressed by eagles. They like eagles.
Yep.
And every time you do something to it, it looks better. When we put the filler in the back, it'll look better. When we stick it down and we sand it, it'll look better. We put the finish on it, it'll really look better. It'll pop. The further you go down in the sand, the hotter it gets. There we go. Goes which way? This way. Is that right? Yeah. There. That's it. Good. Okay, now we want the other foot. It is, which one foot, where's the other foot? There it is, right there. Okay, and that foot gets shaded up near the top, right there. Across the top, okay? This is why Rob Millard will charge you $65 for one of these.
Yeah.
There are several people online that make and sell hand-done Pateraes like this. I see a few of them on there.
What kind? Handgun?
They do them just like I do, and then they sell them.
Handgun.
Yeah, hand-done. Okay, so the foot goes right. Go like this. Yeah. There we go. Now I want the leaf. And I know it's here. There it is right there. And it's shaded right on the very bottom. This is a white wood. This is just plain straight grain maple. Holly, in this case, is too white. It doesn't look like a bird. The browner color of the maple looks more like a bird. So I don't use holly for this. Maple's way better. Can't believe I got that right the first time. In case it's upside down. Go that way. There we go. Getting down to the last pieces. We need a little piece to go on the end of there. And that thing, I know where that is. I'm gonna wait till, I'm gonna go ahead and do the fan, this piece. It's this one. And it gets shaded right at the top, and over on the edges. Let's come up.
you sometimes pour sand across a piece that's got shading in a couple of unusual places that you can't dip?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. This doesn't get hot enough to do that. You have to use a Coleman stove and heat it really hot. And then take a spoon, get that really hot sand, and just lay it on there. Leave it a minute or two, knock it off, and it'll make that shadow line. That's the only way I've been able to get it to work. I tried using this sand, but it doesn't get hot enough.
I use mine, it takes a long time of pouring sand on it, but it eventually.
Yeah, you can. But if you try the Coleman stove, get it real hot, and it'll do it first time.
Yeah.
Use I've got a little set of stainless steel measuring spoons. You got the quarter tablespoon, put it on there, and it's smoking hot. It'll cover it just like that.
I took a teaspoon and bent it in a vise so it's funnel shaped.
Yeah.
And it can direct it very well that way.
Okay, this one. Nope. When you do these things by hand, they only go one way. They won't go another way. I remember that. I ran that cut right there. I made a mistake on that. See that extra cut right there? That's not supposed to be there. That's got to go down in there. Can't fit it. There it goes. See that little line right there? It's not supposed to be there. But if you don't tell me about that one.
We'll cover it with black stuff.
Now, there's one more little piece right in here. And that is, where is it? I ran out of spot, there it is. I ran out of spots. And this, I hope, doesn't get any shady. It's too small. It doesn't. Goes this way. Well, it's got to flip over. There you go.
Keep the original plus the tracings so you can show them folks and see.
There it is.
Didn't count them, but how many pieces was that?
60, I think, 50, I don't remember exactly. I counted them one day. Now, that little piece right there, that little toe, it's gone. I do not know where it is. But we will fix it by getting a piece of this right here and we'll make our own. We're not going to use this. So it's what it looks like that. With a little hook on it. It's too much. It's too much. Yeah, there's one right there. Yeah, still got a little extra on it there. There we go. Flip over. There you go. I can live with that.
It works.
Okay, there it is. All done, except for the shield. And we will cut the shield next. We'll do that, we'll make a shield next. We're gonna, we need to use some machinery. A bandsaw, and that's it. And I have shield material right here.